it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my new house. Welcome to my new office. Welcome to the video. This is going to be a very belated April wrap-up where I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in April. But I did just want to say before we kick this off that it's been so long since I filmed a video and I definitely have missed you all. I'm so sorry it took me so long. If you could see everything behind you, you would know that my office is still very much a work in progress. The bookshelves are not finished yet. And I also just want to say that I think that this is probably going to be a weird angle for me to film at. I do not have all of my stuff unpacked at the moment. I'm just using what I have and I'm doing my best. If this is the first video that you're seeing from me, hello, welcome. I just moved and it has been an absolutely chaotic hot mess of a move. Every other day something else is going wrong and everything is taking way more time than it should. We're coming up with so many new problems every single day. I am so extremely thankful that we were able to buy this house. I feel so lucky about that itself, but life has been so hectic and it's been so stressful and there have been so many problems with this move and I don't honestly have the time to go into it now. I am working on some vlogs. When will those come? I don't know. In the next vlog you see, I'll explain everything that went wrong and all of the problems that we've been having and why I haven't been filming because I've been too busy worrying about everything else in my life. I'm so sorry it took me so long to have the time to film this video, but hello. Now let me tell you about the books that I read in April. I only finished 4 books in the month of April. April was the Magical Readathon month. For the Magical Readathon, I was actually supposed to take 6 classes. In case you're wondering if I finished the semester, I did. There's a scroll you can buy with your guild points that lets you double up books. I made some purchases, so I was able to finish. I did finish reading these books all in the month of April. Now, the other thing though is that April was like one of the most mid-reading months I've ever had in my life. Every single book that I read, I rated 3.5 stars. It happens from time to time, but it still is just so frustrating when you have months like that where everything you read, you're just like, that's a book. But okay, I've been rambling for too long now, so let's get into the books. First up, I read Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 4. This is the Full Metal edition. This is a young adult manga series, and I did want to say it does feel like it's on the younger side of young adult. In this series, you follow 2 brothers who are alchemists, and before the series starts, their mother unfortunately passes away, and the boys are young and don't really understand the consequences of their own actions fully. They definitely don't understand them as well as they should for the amount of power that these 2 boys have. They try to use alchemy to resurrect their mother, and that's a big no-no, and a lot of things go wrong in the process, and one of the brothers loses his entire body, and so his soul is attached to a suit of armor, and then the other brother loses his arm and his leg. After this happens, because of how strong they are, they're actually recruited by the government to become state alchemists and use their alchemy for the government, and they agree to do that because they also have their own goals, and the brothers basically want to, over the course of whatever missions the government sends them out on, they kind of want to use the government's resources in order to find a solution so that they can get their original bodies back. And then while that is going on, there's also some bad guys, and the bad guys seem to be breaking the laws of physics within this world. I love it when bad guys break the world. It's a really fun premise, and I do recommend this series. Now, this specific volume, the reason I only gave it 3.5 stars, I say only, I want to make it clear, 3.5 stars is a good rating. That is a good book. And I did have a lot of fun reading this. It was silly and goofy. There's a ton of humor in this series. So I did have a really good time with this. It's just that in this volume, we spend a lot of time kind of having flashbacks and training sequences of like the boys learning how to do alchemy in the past and training and stuff like that. It did feel like this volume didn't really push the story forward at all, and it also was like a little bit repetitive because even though we got a lot more details that we didn't know, we at least knew a lot of the big picture of the flashbacks that occurred in here. So overall, I just didn't really get as much out of this volume. I think that we still learned some really important details that are definitely gonna matter in the future, and so like I understand why this volume had to exist. And like I said, it was still funny, it was still goofy, and I still enjoyed myself while reading it. It just wasn't my favorite in the series. Last month, I also finally got around to reading Seasonal Fears by Seanan McGuire. This is book 2 in the Alchemical Journeys series. Book 1 in this series is Middle Game, and Middle Game is an all-time favorite of mine. I absolutely love that novel. It's so good. As the series implies, Alchemical Journeys, this is honestly another book that is about alchemy. So in book 1, you're following these twins named Roger and Dodger, and they were created in a lab. And the premise behind book 1 is that these twins are basically trying to attain godhood. The tagline is like, pray that it is not attained, basically. Like, if these twins do ascend to godhood, bad things are gonna happen. It is kind of a hard book to talk about. These twins were created to have like specific abilities, and these abilities are alchemical in nature, and they basically let them break the world open. The alchemist that created these two twins, that he built them and made them, he wants to use them and control them, and so that they attain this godhood position, and then he can use their power for his own means. There's kind of this like whole alchemy organization within the book, and so like this guy basically wants to be able to control God so that he can have a ton of power and break the universe. It's a really hard book to talk about because, first of all, I don't want to give too much away, and honestly I think that you should read Middle Game. Like I said, it's one of my favorite books, and I think that the less you know going into it, the better. But this is the second book in the series, and in this one we're actually following two different characters. We're following Melanie and her boyfriend, and I forget her boyfriend's name. So sorry to him. I'm not sure if the whole series is going to go like this, but this is basically kind of a connected standalone to Middle Game. In my opinion, you absolutely do need to read Middle Game first in order to like fully understand and appreciate this, especially when it comes to talking about alchemy and like the rules that are involved in that. But the plot of this is kind of entirely separate. Melanie was created by her father to be the embodiment of winter. In this alternate universe, the seasons are personified, and there is a king or queen of winter and summer. Whenever the old king or queen puts down their crown, or whenever they die, there is this like tournament, sort of. It's not really a tournament, but like it's sort of, if you read this, you'll get it. There's a competition to see who will be the new king or queen of summer and winter, because they are connected. So like if you kill one, you kill the other. And Melanie was created by her father to be like the perfect alchemical body in order to embody the concept and the personification of winter. Wouldn't you know it, as coincidence would have it, her boyfriend is actually a natural born vessel for the embodiment of summer. And at the beginning of the book, the old king of winter is killed, and so it starts this chain of events that wrap up Melanie and her boyfriend into this competition. It is very interesting because like they literally don't have a choice. It's pretty much like win this competition or you will definitely die. Overall, I did still enjoy this book. I do really really love the idea of seasonal magic. I love the idea that like the seasons are personified, that they have avatars. The personification of concepts is something that I really enjoy in books. It's one of the reasons that I liked N.K. Jemisin's The City We Became and The World We Make so much. But overall, I did not enjoy this as much as I enjoyed Middle Game. I think part of it is that the rules are a little bit more ambiguous in this compared to Middle Game. And here's the thing, the rules of alchemy are like extremely soft and flexible in this world, but when I was reading Middle Game, I very much was like, I know that this is fantasy, but Seanan McGuire has sold me on the idea of alchemy. I was like, she has set this up, it's a very, very soft magic system, but it was set up in a way that it was extremely believable, and I really felt like it was a part of like the world, that alchemy could be real if I just like opened my eyes a certain way. I didn't quite get that same level of immersion within this book. I also really liked the relationship of Roger and Dodger as being siblings in book one more than I liked Melanie and her boyfriend in this one. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I am a sucker for a good love story, but I just did not enjoy their relationship as much as I did the brother-sister dynamic in book one. That being said, Seanan McGuire really does nail certain aspects of long-term relationships. So Melanie has a heart condition due to like the circumstances of her creation and birth, and you learn why that happens in the book. But the thing is, there's this like certain sense of fate within Seasonal Fears, because Melanie and her boyfriend meeting is basically pure chance, but they form this like unshakable bond of friendship when they meet. They meet as children, they're like 5 or something, and when they meet they form this unshakable instant connection that lasts for years. And I think Seanan McGuire does a really good job of giving a small window of what it's like to be inside of a relationship where you have been together for almost your entire life. You like, the relationship has existed. They didn't date obviously their entire lives, that's a more new development, but like before that they were best friends. I think she does a really good job of showing what that's like, both the positives and the negatives, because again, like Melanie is very sick. There's a chance that she could die at any moment because of her heart condition. And I think Seanan McGuire does a really good job of showing how that affects both sides of the relationship. And I think she did a really good job building this very believable, flawed relationship between these two teenagers, where at the end of the day they really do love each other with all of their hearts. But that does not mean that the relationship is perfect between the two of them. My biggest criticism of this book though, and the main reason why it's only 3.5 stars instead of being 5 stars like Middle Game, is that the competition is kind of lackluster. The ending of this book is really lackluster. It felt so anticlimactic. I am going to continue this series because the writing is absolutely beautiful and stunning, and I think the character work is fantastic, but like the climax of this book was not climactic. It was, as a matter of fact, anticlimactic, and I was disappointed. I wasn't disappointed with what happened. I was disappointed with how much happened and how it played out, like step by step. I was like, this is all you're gonna give me? That's it? I also think that the character of Aven in here was really underutilized, because in Middle Game I actually got like emotional a couple of times. You know, it really pulled on my heartstrings and tugged. And I think that part of that is that I was just more attached to those characters than the characters in here. But part of it, I think, is Seanan McGuire's writing, and she's really good at pulling out people's emotions. And I think the character of Aven could have really done that, really pulled on her heartstrings. And I just think that that character was really underutilized and did not fulfill their potential of what that could have been. I still do highly 100% recommend Middle Game. I did still give this 3.5 stars. I still think it's a really good book. Shauna McGuire is a fantastic writer. I absolutely love the writing style, and I do plan to continue this series. Next up, I read The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. This is the first book in the Library trilogy, which is an adult fantasy series. In this first book, we're following two characters. Primarily, we're following Lavira, who is a young girl at the start of the book and then is a full-grown adult by the time we get to the end of the book. She is born and lives like the first couple of years of her life in this extremely impoverished village. At the start of this book, Lavira's village is attacked by these like intelligent non-human creatures called sabers. It leads to her being taken to the capital city. Her village is presumably destroyed, and she is rescued from this attack by some soldiers from the capital city, and then she is taken there, and then she ends up as an apprentice librarian. Working for the library in any capacity is very prestigious within this world. Within the capital city, the library and the knowledge that they have is like actually considered their main export. Being able to be an apprentice librarian in training to become an actual librarian is even more prestigious. And for the majority of Lavira's story, we are following her training and learning about the library, because the library is more than it seems. It is a magical library. It is gigantic. You can easily like get lost and die of starvation before people are able to find you. It is huge and it is magical, and Lavira absolutely loves it there, but also she is kind of a rascal. She ends up breaking a lot of rules, and she ends up going a little bit her own way. It's quite fun. I absolutely love Lavira as a character. The other main character is Ivar, and Ivar is an adult, mainly because if we read about his childhood, it would be really boring. Ivar lives within the library, and he has been trapped there with his 4 siblings for his entire life, and he desperately wants to escape the library. But again, the library is vast and magical, and basically the point of this story is to see how the two of these characters and how their stories end up intertwining and connecting over the course of the novel. Once again, like every other book this month, I gave this 3.5 stars. And the main reason is that this kind of felt like a setup book. I felt very much like this is just act 1 of a bigger story, and that in and of itself isn't really criticism. Sometimes series need setup books, okay? Like, I totally get it if you don't want to read setup books. If you're like, listen, if the first book, if the second book, if they're setup books, I'm not reading that series. That's totally fine and respectable. I totally get that. I understand it, even though I also think that sometimes series need setup books. Like, sometimes they do. But, you know, those books are never going to be my favorite, and this was the case. I was definitely interested in the library itself. Also, because the two main characters are both so involved in the library, you really only get to see what goes on in the library. There is a whole world outside of the library, and it has like its own politics and its own players out there, and you really only get like small windows into what else is going on, because the POV that you get are both pretty much always in the library. Unfortunately, this did feel very much like a setup book. I got to the end, we learned some very significant things. There were a couple of reveals that I really liked. I think the library is extremely fascinating, and I also really like the characters Lavira and Ivar, and I also really liked seeing and watching Lavira grow into an adult, and then seeing how her and Ivar's stories were going to connect to each other and intertwine with each other. And I also especially liked seeing Ivar and Lavira through each other's eyes when they look at each other and think about each other and, you know, you hear that inner monologue. It's very interesting, and I think that that's a really interesting way to build character development. I think Mark Lawrence did a really, really good job getting me attached to these two characters and making me care about both of them individually and making me really invested in how each of them individually view the world, but also making me really invested in how they view each other and how they interact with each other, because they are extremely different characters. I'm currently reading book 2. I'm definitely gonna finish the series, and like I said, 3.5 stars is a good rating. I still liked this book. I can definitely see why other people have rated it higher. I definitely saw some people the year this book came out having this in their top 10, so I do recommend this book if you're interested in the premise, because I know that the 5-star potential, even though it wasn't there for me, definitely is for other people. I do think that maybe the series, as I keep going, like I said, I'm only on book 2. I still have a book and a half to get through, but there's definitely potential for this to become a 5-star series. It's just that you are gonna have to get through quite a bit of setup before you get to some payoff. So yeah, that's the book that wouldn't burn. And then the last book that I read is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. Everybody is reading this book, and honestly, I get it. I do get it. This was actually a gift to me. I'm saying it's a birthday gift, even though technically she gave it to me in February, but this is a gift from my friend Rachel. And then when I had my surgery, she freaking sent me books 2 through 4. And just a spoiler for my May wrap up, I'm currently almost finished with book 3. I'm really liking this series. It's so fun and it's so entertaining, and I 100% get the hype. That being said, once again, I rated this book 3.5 stars, so let's get into it. So this is a lit RPG. It's a science fiction novel where basically aliens come down to Earth, and through some technology that we humans do not have, they just suck everything into the Earth. So they just like suck all the buildings into the Earth's crust. It's very weird, and like honestly, the entire book overall is really weird in a really fun way. This is definitely a series where like things are a little bit random, and like they're intentionally a little bit random, and you kind of just have to be like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's fine that there are llamas that are dealing meth. Sure, why not? Why not have drug dealing llamas? Might as well. After the aliens suck all of the buildings into the Earth's crust, all of these dungeon entrances pop up on the Earth, and Carl was actually only outside because he was chasing after his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, who had jumped out the window that he opened to smoke. Unfortunately for Carl, it was 2:30 in the morning in Seattle in the middle of winter. He doesn't really want to go into this dungeon, but it's basically go into the dungeon or die of hypothermia. So he decides, well, I don't want to die of hypothermia, and he goes into the dungeon. Of course, he takes his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, with him, and because she is the first cat to enter the dungeon, she gets a prize box that has a magical potion, and it turns her sentient. So now it's Carl and this super intelligent talking cat, and they're, you know, crawling through the dungeon. This book definitely feels like a video game. It's lit RPG, so the book reads as if you are playing an RPG. And honestly, the entertainment is 10 out of 10. This is one of the most entertaining series that I have read probably in my entire life. This entire dungeon is 18 levels, even though no one has ever made it past floor 13, the 13th level, because this is not the first time aliens have run this, but also the entire dungeon is televised. It does kind of have that like Hunger Games aspect to it, where it is exploitative in nature, and these aliens are exploiting these humans and forcing them to risk their lives for entertainment. Now, the difference is that it's not like they don't have to kill each other. They do, but they don't have to. Basically, the goal is to get down to the last floor. Like, the goal is to make it out of the dungeon. And the dungeon is designed to kill the crawlers. It's designed to kill the humans that are inside it. And like, not all humans are trustworthy. I don't know if you know this, but humans kind of suck. And part of the process is, you know, Carl trying to figure out what other crawlers can he trust. The dungeon is so vast that he doesn't actually run into very many of them. He only sees them occasionally, and he has to decide, you know, who is he gonna trust, who can he work together with, who can he help, and he has to decide what he's gonna do. There definitely is a little bit of that Hunger Games aspect, just in the fact that this is entertainment for the aliens, and there are like trillions and trillions of viewers across like the entire galaxy watching this show as Carl and Donut try to navigate this dungeon. This series also has a lot to say about capitalism and exploitation and fascism, and I really am liking that the further I get into this series, the more we talk about how like you can't win, you know what I mean? Like, in this capitalist hellscape, like, you cannot win. And you know, Carl is doing bad things to survive. Sometimes he's doing good things, but the more we learn about the galaxy and the people running this dungeon, which like we're only able to get like small glimpses. Matt Dinniman does a fantastic job of layering in these like really small windows into like the outside world of the galaxy and like what is going on beyond Earth. He does such a fantastic job really showing how terrible this dungeon is and how like they're able to force the crawlers to just do terrible things for the sake of entertainment, and how they're able to like humiliate them and just like really manipulate them into doing whatever they want, because like the thing is, the crawlers are dying. This is not like a video game where if you die you respawn. Like, if they die, they are dead. And I think all the commentary in here, it hits so hard, especially with the state that the world is in now, especially with the hell of capitalism that we are currently living in, especially in the United States. It's just a hot mess. It's a hot mess. That being said, I don't think that this book is perfect. However, I do think that the series overall is getting better. I would say that like the majority of the issues that I had in book 1 have already been resolved by the time you're like halfway through book 2. So the first thing is Carl is a bit ableist in his head with his internal dialogue. I really didn't like that. It really kind of hit my enjoyment of this book. Now, I will say that I am able-bodied. I am not disabled, but from what I have seen in books 2 and 3, it does seem like the ableist language has been eliminated. Again, I want to emphasize I am able-bodied, so like there's definitely things that I might not notice that might go over my head, but I noticed that like in book 1, Carl's internal monologue, there were like quite a few moments where I was like, ugh, why are you even thinking that? I'm like, you're such a dick, Carl. But that has been resolved. Now, the other thing, and I want to make it clear that I get it. I really do get it. The premise of this dungeon is that they are exploiting these humans. The aliens came down, they have taken over Earth, they sucked all of the buildings into the Earth's core, and now they are stealing all of the Earth's resources, and they are exploiting all the remaining humans that are left in this dungeon for their own entertainment. And it's a terrible thing, and the whole point is that they are exploiting them. Everybody, including all of the NPCs in this dungeon, are being exploited. And honestly, what Matt Dinniman does with the NPCs in this dungeon, I think is phenomenal and fantastic. I absolutely love the way he talks about these NPCs and what he has to say about them, and I love what he has to say and how he sets up these NPCs and what that means thematically with the rest of the book. And I'm just gonna leave it at that because I definitely think that you should try this series and see if you also enjoy it as much as I do. So when I say that I get it, I really do. I understand that not only are the humans being exploited, but these NPCs that have been created for this dungeon, they're also being exploited. Take this with a grain of salt, but in book 1 and part of book 2, there's just like a lot of boobs being described. And I get it thematically, but sometimes when it's a man describing just a bunch of boobs, you're like, I get it. You like boobs. Can we please stop describing so many boobs and can we move on? Now, like I said, this basically stops halfway through book 2, and I don't think I've had a single boob described the entirety of book 3. So I do think moving forward, this will probably not be an issue. And again, I get the point. I get the point. But it does dim my enjoyment when I'm like, okay, yes, I get it. It's another boobs. Everyone loves boobs. Okay, we can move on though. Like, you know what I'm saying? That is my second criticism of it, but like I said, it's basically been resolved. And then my only other thing that kind of dimmed my enjoyment of this book, because once again, this is one of the most entertaining series I have ever read in my entire life. However, I am a massive gamer. Like, I play a lot of video games, and I've also like dabbled in D&D, and so I'm not actually sure if what I'm saying is like a true criticism or not, but I did feel like volume 1 was like a little bit repetitive in terms of like the world building and in terms of Matt Dinniman explaining the rules of the dungeon. This is a little bit hard for me to judge here because I've played so many video games that sometimes I'm like, yeah, duh, of course that's how it works. That's how it works in every video game that's ever existed. Like, you don't need to explain that to me. That is common sense. So I do think part of it is that my experience makes some of the world building feel like repetitive info dump. Now here's the thing, I do think that Matt Dinniman is repetitive in book 1. He definitely explains certain things multiple times. He really wants to like remind the reader like, hey, this is how it works in this world. Like, hey, this is like a fake game show. Like, things aren't working the way they do in the real world. Some of it definitely is just pure repetition so that the reader is reminded of the way the world works. And then some of it, I'm not sure if it is truly just like common sense duh, or if it's just that I have so much experience within the world of video games that like I just already figured out things that then Matt has to write for everyone else that is not as big of a nerd as I am. I do recommend this series. I'm having so much fun reading it. I am absolutely flying through it. Like I said, I'm already almost done with book 3. It is so entertaining, and like also I love Princess Donut. I know that like some people don't necessarily like talking animals, and I do want to remind you that Princess Donut is like of human intelligence now. I personally love her as a character. Like, I love her more than Carl, to be honest. But I do know that that is not going to be for everyone. I also did want to say that this is a really funny series and I do like it, but it is definitely kind of like, I say this with love, this series is definitely bro humor, if that makes sense. I think that the book is funny. There are a couple times where I'm like, okay, I get it. But still, overall, I do think it is really humorous. I think especially the further I get into the series, I think Matt does an even better job of like hitting the perfect level of crudeness to humor. You can definitely tell if you continue the series that he has grown as a writer. He has improved. His sense of comedic timing has improved. Like, everything improves throughout the series. But I did just want to mention that the humor isn't going to be for everyone. I do recommend like reading a couple chapters to see if it's going. Actually, you probably have to read like 100 pages to see if the humor is going to be for you, because a lot of the early stuff is doom and gloom and drug dealing llamas. And then I also wanted to mention that this series is kind of gross. The dungeon is nasty. There's some gore in here, you know, there's some decapitations, there's fighting. It gets a little gross sometimes. Now, I will say, like, I don't ever think it's too gross, and I do think that, like, the grossness is intentional. This is not a sentence I thought I was ever gonna say, but I think the grossness actually works really well, because I think when you see how gross some of the scenes, not all of them obviously, but when you see how gross some of the scenes are and you combine that with like the bro humor, and then you also combine it with like the themes of the series, I think it just like all works together. Now, that being said, I also am a horror reader. This didn't faze me. None of the grossness in here fazed me. Compared to like the horror books that I read, it's pretty tame. It's just really bloody. And you know, sometimes people get disemboweled. That's Dungeon Crawler Carl. Like I said, I really, really recommend it. I had such a great time. I cannot wait to keep reading this series. If you have made it to the end of this video, thank you so, so very much. This is your first glimpse of my new office and the new house. I will show you so much more in the first vlog that I put out. I'm actually working on 3 vlogs right now, which is very exciting. So if you have any interest in seeing those, if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more, please consider subscribing, consider commenting. I would really appreciate that. I hope that you have a good week, a good weekend. I hope that you're safe this week, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye!